morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar this morning. This webinar is on key master data governance trends for 2016-17, and we will be covering the key trends and also have an important case study that we had on execution of MDM in Johnson&Johnson. Aaron, you take controls, please.
Okay, Annajee, thank you. If we could go to the next chart. My name is Aaron Zornes. I'm the Chief Research Officer for the MDM Institute, and I'm also known as the Conference Chairman for the MDM and Data Governance Summit, held around the world, a series of conferences every year that bring in about 3,000 practitioners to share experiences, best practices, and get their updates. So I'd like to thank Vinculum for asking me to moderate this webcast on behalf of everybody. And if we could go to the next chart, we should get some information about our agenda, I hope, on the next chart. Oh, actually, a little bit more about the MDM Institute. On the MDM Institute, we actually give away our research. There's no charge for our research. And in particular, we work closely with 150 very large companies, our advisory council, where we help them with their MDM evaluations, their reference checking, their price negotiations, and so on, so that they get a better set of orienteering coordinates to help them on their MDM journey. And so as you can see, there's some very large companies globally here. In the right-hand column, the second from the bottom, Westpac. A lot of people may not know them, but they're the 7th largest bank in the world out of Sydney. We also do some pro bono work. For example, the first column, fifth one down, Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, a non-governmental organization that needs that has used our help, and so on. And so again, we give away our research. The way we make our money, the way we make our living, is by working with organizations at our conferences and then deriving a lot of that experience and giving it as feedback to the vendors and the solution providers in the market so that they can better address the requirements that the marketplace has and going forward. So on the next chart, we'll definitely get some insight into today. And the market itself is a very healthy market when we look at master data management. The master data management market could be comprised of customer data integration, CDI, customer data integration, or MDM of customer. It's about $1 billion software market at the end of this calendar year. And likewise, product information management, or PIM, PIM, is likewise a $1 billion software market. And these are growing about 11% compounded annual growth at this point. But the important note that I'd like to leave here is not that it's a huge market of over $2 billion in software and several $billion more in services to stand it up and to do continuity and maintenance, et cetera, on these systems. But the important point is that more than 50% of the installations and of the revenue are from the second and third tier solution providers. That is, there's so much diversity in the marketplace to meet all the different requirements, whether it's for consumer packaged goods or retail or telco or pharma, or whether it's for reference data in a legal risk management application. There are many different horizontal and vertical specialties out there where organizations will take an MDM platform and further enhance it for a particular use case or industry or geography. And so clearly, more than 50%, which means it's a safe bet to go with more than the mega vendors being IBM, Oracle, Informatica, SAP. So it is considered a safe bet to use software other than the mega vendors. Next chart, please. And we should also remind ourselves that there are some macro trends going on in the marketplace. That is, there's extreme consolidation that's been going on for a while, consolidation where the mega vendors have been acquiring best-of-breed capabilities because, as everybody knows, the very large software vendors or IT vendors don't innovate, they acquire. Okay, and then they have the onus, they have the burden of trying to integrate all these piece parts that they buy. And that's how they evolve their product family. So if you look at, for example, IBM, it acquired DWL, a customer data integration capability, then it acquired Initiate Systems, which was a registry-style MDM app, and then they acquired Trigo, which was a best-of-breed product information management, and then Lombardi, business process management, Essential for ETL, et cetera, Validity for name and address cleansing, Systems Resource and Development, SRD, for matching algorithms, and then LAS, Language Analysis Systems, for global naming, identity resolution, et cetera. And so clearly there's a lot of consolidation and acquisition being done by the mega vendors. And at the same time, though, again, to remind ourselves at the bottom thought on this chart is that there's something that we would characterize as a duology, the worshiping of two gods, if you like, and that a lot of organizations will take on the mega vendor's product, that is IBM, Informatica, Oracle, SAP, for customer, product, or supplier. That is, that large corporations want to feel safe with their mission-critical domains of customer, product, and supplier, but for everything else, they're happy using yet another product, whether it be a departmental level application for HR, whether it be a location master, a pricing master, a reference data, et cetera. They're very happy using a third-party product for less of a complex footprint, perhaps more of a native cloud implementation, and perhaps just better pricing. Okay, and so they don't want to take on a menagerie of tens of different products, but they're happy to take on 1, 2, or 3 extra products in addition to their prime, their center of gravity, if you want to call it that, COG, center of gravity, or their systems partners. So we do find more than one MDM vendor in the vast, vast majority of our organizations that we work with. And now we're going to continue on the next chart, part 2 of the trends in the marketplace. And on this chart, we're talking about the fact that MDM itself is being commoditized. That is, the ability to cleanse data, to match data from multiple sources and blend it into a single view of X or a golden record, et cetera. That's all pretty much commoditized, as well as this SOA, service-oriented architecture, if you like, web services that do add customer, delete customer, promote or demote customer up and down a hierarchy. This is all pretty standard functionality, as well as modest data stewardship capabilities to govern the onboarding of customers, products, suppliers, citizens, et cetera. So this is pretty standard stuff these days. And so what we find is that the vendors, and in particular the mega vendors, are going vertical and going horizontal to move up the food chain to add value to compete against each other. And so they are becoming more and more specialists. So if you look at, SAP has historically been geared towards manufacturing, and that's their sweet spot. So they're MDG for materials, they're MDG, Master Data Governance for supplier, MDGM for materials. These are all standard apps that a lot of the world uses because of the dominance of SAP. Likewise, Oracle has a lot to do with horizontal apps such as sales, service, and marketing. And so you'll see that their cloud apps rely upon the cloud MDM. IBM likewise is specialized in financial services with their RDM hub, and also for healthcare with patient, provider, and clinical hub, and so on. And so that's a lot of the differentiation that we're seeing going on in the marketplace. Now, furthermore, there's integration among the second and third tier vendors. That is, the second and third tier vendors that came to the market later than IBM, Oracle, SAP, Informatica. These vendors had the benefit of starting from the scratch with, if you like, a clean sheet of paper, a green field, however you want to characterize it. And so they were able to start out with data governance blended into their MDM product. They were able to start out with reference data as a domain that they innately support, and so on and so on. And they are having to differentiate among themselves by likewise going vertical or horizontal and specializing in CPG or telco or pharma, med device, et cetera. And likewise, we'll see that part of their technology differentiation these days is that they're adding more and more data governance, more and more business process management, BPM, and we're also seeing increasingly some applications of graph database to better integrate the domains and allow crosswalking of domains, and also allow analytics to be performed across the various domains in a graph-like nature using graph database. So that's the future that we see. Next chart, please. And on our next chart, mine's not refreshing here, so I pause a little bit. Okay, here we go. So as an industry analyst organization, part of my credentials is I was one of the founders of the second largest analyst firm in the world, a firm called Meta Group, M-E-T-A Group. For 15 years, I ran the largest practice there for industry analysts, and we sold out to Gartner in 2004. But my training is as an industry analyst for the last 25 plus years. And so as an industry analyst, what any analyst firm will do is take various technology chunks, whether it's client server, web services, data as a service, telco, network, intrusion, cybersecurity, whatever. Take various chunks of technology and further chunk it up, and then have some analysts specialize and look at the use cases, look at the best practices, look at the vendors, look at the solution providers, the consultancies, and help organizations plan their execution and utilization of these very valuable IT technologies. So when we do that as industry analysts, we will chunk it out, and within the MDM Institute, here are 12 areas that we cover, and in particular, we revolve our research around these topics. And today, I'm going to give you an overview of data governance, of business process management, and of cloud MDM as it relates to our subject today and our use case of Johnson&Johnson and our sponsor, Vinculum Cloud MDM. So I'm going to bring that all together a little bit by outlining 3 high-level trends in the marketplace as strategic planning assumptions. So next up, next chart, I'm going to start with data governance. And with data governance, what's important to know is that we have a requirement for the creation of the rules to administer how we source and how we manage, that is, how we govern ourselves when it comes to bringing together the multiple data sources that comprise single view of X, whether it's at a departmental level, division level, or enterprise-wide level. And what we're finding is that this is a huge struggle for most organizations, not just because it's political, it's cultural, but also because the software is not quite there. Okay, the software has been very much lagging for the last 10 years, in our experience and opinion. It's been very woefully lagging the requirements. The mega vendors have not done a good job. SAP is sort of an exception, but for the most part, the mega vendors have not done a good job in integrating governance with their MDM. And we all understand that data governance can be the, if you like, the Inquisition, where we come in and interview everybody as to how bad things are, and we document that, but that's not the end-all of the journey for data governance. What we really want is not just capturing the requirements and the processes, but we want to encapsulate them and systemize them so that they are a set of rules that will manage our MDM hubs and the interaction with our hubs and the interaction with all the other apps that use master data. And so that's the problem, is that most of the data governance tools on the market that are pure data governance don't integrate with, don't even provide a one-way trip into the MDM hub, let alone a round-trip experience. And so what we're finding is that the majority of the mega vendors are way behind on data governance, whereas the second and third tier MDM software vendors have blended in data governance from the beginning, but at the same time, they're all challenged to grow this and to provide more of the end-to-end life cycle, if you like, not just onboarding and offboarding customers, product suppliers, but also being able to accommodate all the nuances and all the integrations and all the use cases across the community that will be utilizing that master data management, that master data that's been mastered, okay? And so in the marketplace, we're a little bit disgruntled because as industry analysts, we're so tired of organizations, vendors in particular, proclaiming themselves as having data governance. I mean, everybody has added data governance to their list of features. And as a result, the term data governance has taken on the value of like new lemon scented. It just doesn't add a lot of value to the conversation when somebody says they have data governance. Instead, we want to know, do they have integrated data governance? Do they have proactive? And to further abuse the situation, a lot of the vendors in the marketplace have taken to using the words integrated and proactive, when in reality they don't do that, okay, in our view and in our experiences. And so we had to coin yet another description for those vendors who have, they say one thing, they do something else, and so we call that passive-aggressive data governance, where they claim to be integrated or proactive, and in reality they're nothing more than a data steward console, a reactive tool. And likewise, just to poke fun at our friends at Gartner who talk about bimodal data governance, we're finding it bipolar. That is, we're finding the data governance either works for the business professionals or the IT pros, but not both. And in reality, you want the data governance world to do some of each, because they should not be discrete black and white communities when you talk about who uses the governance tools, who captures the requirements, and who is driving the system. Next chart, please. So on the next chart, we're going to talk about the critique that I just gave there somewhat, to summarize it, is that we're finding in the marketplace really light data governance. Light data governance being the fact that a lot of these tools don't do the heavy lifting in terms of the integration. They don't do a lot of the high-end master data design, the models, the relationships, et cetera, that you would expect. And as a result, they're more appropriate for the BI community than the front office, middle, back office, and the IT pros. We're also finding that a lot of the data governance out there simply doesn't work with the various dominant BPMs. You know, they work with their BPM only and barely at that. You know, they can do their own workflows, but they don't integrate into the broader fabric of the workflows that the company might be using to execute applications and application integration. We also find that the data governance tools in market, for the most part, are lacking policy management, which is a very important part of data governance, the policies that we've identified and that we create, et cetera. And likewise, we're finding only modest integration with the MDM hubs if the third-party data governance tool. So very modest integration at this point. And so next we're going to shoot off to another trend on the next chart. And we're going to talk about on the next chart business process management. Okay, so business process management, BPM, when we look at the marketplace as industry analysts or as IT procurement people, we're aware that there are master data management vendors and then there are business process management vendors. And at the moment, master data management seems to be, you know, a much larger market in terms of installation base, revenue growth, number of vendors, and all that. But BPM is very important. A good number of organizations will center their IT strategies around business process management. You know, because orchestration of processes, both manual and computer, are hugely important. Human and computer-driven processes are very, very important, you know, as to how we run ourselves as an enterprise. And so these two different worlds have somewhat collided in the sense that the MDM vendors have acquired BPM vendors themselves and integrated it, and or built it out from the get-go. And then likewise, we have the business process management BPM vendors. They likewise have acquired MDM capabilities. Software AG, TIBCO being notable among the BPM vendors that have done that. They've acquired MDM, and they're making that play as part of their family of products. So where is all this going, and why do we care? Well, we just want to remind ourselves that no matter where you go, you got to have both. Okay, no matter where you go, you got to have both business process management and master data management, and you want governance to drive all this, the policies in particular. And so depending upon your orientation, you may go towards a BPM-flavored MDM or an MDM-flavored BPM, but you really want both. On the next chart, we're going to jump off and talk about cloud. And in particular, what we want to remind ourselves about cloud MDM is that, or cloud in general, is that cloud capabilities are supremely important in our lives these days. Not just because we shop at Amazon or because we use eBay to unload stuff or however you want to characterize it, Salesforce to perhaps automate pieces of our company or Workday or whatever. The immense, unlimited, and scalable compute power available through utility computing in the cloud, as well as the architecture of cloud-based apps that allow us to stand up something such that we don't have to install more hardware, more operating systems, and do more maintenance and hire more IT people to caretake all these diverse systems we want to employ in our companies. Instead, being able to contract it as a service, you know, X as a service, that's a wonderful concept. And then likewise, the model of utility computing, the model such that we pay on an operational expense rather than a capital expense, that can be attractive also to organizations. And so cloud, everything has an impact. And so yes, cloud MDM exists, and our sponsor today has, you know, innately built-in cloud capabilities. And this is very important because a lot of organizations, when they evaluate MDM, they want to test drive it, and they cannot install, you know, 3 or 4 different brands of MDM and stand them up along with the hardware and the diverse software they require as underpinnings to test it all. So it's a great way to test drive these in terms of functionality and scalability by test driving it on the cloud. And then likewise, there are a lot of us that have quarterly or seasonal lumps in the road, bumps in the road where we have to scale up immensely to get through that period. And we need 7 by 24 by 365 type computing power so that we can scale up when we need it, both in terms of storage as well as in terms of compute power. And so such functionality as name and address resolution, these are very important capabilities that can be thrown up into the cloud and executed. On the other hand, you find that a lot of organizations are hesitant to share because legally or risk management-wise, they don't want their customer or citizen data in the cloud, or they're not allowed to do it. They can only do it within their geographic legal jurisdiction, that sort of thing. And so there are some restrictions on how we use cloud and why and where we use it. But in any case, it's important to know that it's an important part of any vendor's roadmap to provide that. And it's also important for any IT organization to have that factored in as part of their procurement evaluation processes and considerations. Okay, so let's head off to the next chart. And in this chart, we're going to remind ourselves that there are a number of options for you to get more information about all the above that we've talked about so far. In particular, my organization runs these MDM and data governance summits around the world. These are the largest gatherings of their kind. The next one is the largest one in the world annually. It's held in New York City. It will take place November 8th, 9th, and 10th. Yes, November 8th is Election Day. That day we have a bunch of workshops and tutorials. And then that's Tuesday, November 8th. And then November 9 and 10, we have about 500 people convening and getting their latest updates on MDM and data governance or getting their orientation if they're first-timers, et cetera. And there are other opportunities as well. London in May, San Francisco July, Sydney July, Tokyo August, and then we hope to be in Shanghai finally October, November. And I just got word that New York City in 2017 will be October 10 through 12. So we're looking at in November, in 2017, October 10 through 12. So there are some other opportunities, as well as, of course, various LinkedIn groups, as well as a huge amount of slideware and YouTube tutorials, plus the vendors themselves and the systems integrators all provide a great amount of use case and case studies that you can find on their websites that further provide. Again, my organization, the MDM Institute, our research is free. So if you plow through our website, use our search engine on our website, you should be able to find information on just about anybody or anything, and there's no charge for that. Okay, so now I'd like to continue and give ourselves an overview of the agenda on the next chart. And on the next chart, setting ourselves up, we see that we have our case study before we have our sponsor take 5 minutes to explain how they provided value to the situation we're going to be discussing. But next up, we're very happy to have, I'm in Northern California, and Gil Gamez and crew are in Southern Cal. J&J's Advanced Sterilization Products, we're going to hear a case study from Gil where they were able to apply MDM in a supply chain environment. Gil, let's hand it over to you now.
Great, thanks, Aaron. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Again, my name is Gil Gamez. I'm with Advanced Sterilization Products, one of the 250 companies under Johnson&Johnson, and we fall under the med device part of Johnson&Johnson. I've served in numerous capacities within supply chain, both from planning as well as procurement, distribution, and logistics. I'm now currently the Master Data and Business Systems Manager for ASP. So I'd like to talk about very quickly our business case that we developed on seeking out Vin MDM, our approach on implementation, and then finally our immediate wins that we've seen to date with ASP and the Vin relationship and the workflow tool. Next slide, please. So some of the key challenges. So in 2014, ASP migrated over from a very old legacy system into SAP. Master data is essentially key to any system from a supply chain perspective, as well as logistics, manufacturing, quality. When we migrated over to SAP, we went from a case where we were essentially only collecting about 25 attributes to be born in our legacy system. And suddenly when we moved to SAP, we found that SAP is very master data focused, very master data hungry, and really required us to collect up in the neighborhood of 200, 250 attributes for master data. And those attributes spread throughout different business units within the organization. So across plan, make, source, deliver, quality, and finance. What we found is long-term it wasn't sustainable. So we developed what I like to call an Excel spreadsheet on steroids, where we had to go out and collect all master data requirements that were required within SAP across all the business units. So this was an Excel-based application or Excel-based Excel spreadsheet that wasn't sustainable over long term. Also was requiring a resource from my team to invest a lot of time to manage this process, and again, wasn't sustainable long term. As I talked about, a huge manual effort, quarterbacking this effort across all the business units to collect the data, and also ensuring the data was accurate and the quality of data was important, as this is what keeps us in business to ship to our customers on a daily basis. So this was a huge effort in just coordinating and maintaining this. We had zero visibility to internal and external parties across the region on what we were doing from a master data perspective, because we serve in a worldwide environment to our customers. Real-time information is key for our supply chains around the world to be able to deliver our products to customers. So we had a gap in being able to provide that real-time visibility to our affiliates around the world. We had inadequate mechanisms for tracking and monitoring progress. So as I stated, we had an individual on my team that was really quarterbacking this effort. It was a manual effort to go in and track who was holding up the file, where the file was at the current time, how many more business units had to provide information, and finally get the information to us to the point that we can verify it and then prepare it to be loaded in SAP. So it wasn't sustainable, bottom line. It wasn't, we had to have a mechanism to drive data accuracy and quality, which we weren't finding from a manual operation. So next slide, please. So really then turned the tide a bit, and we started seeking out where we identified a need for an automated workflow tool. So taking all those processes that I just explained and really removing it from somebody manually quarterbacking that process and using a workflow to drive the disciplines, drive the accuracy of the data, drive the quality of the data, and drive the entire process from A to Z specifically by business function. So as we collected master data, the business functions were important in sequence on how the data was collected, and the workflow tool really provided this expertise. So the picture that you see in front of you, the box above, is really what it looked like prior. So we were on an Excel spreadsheet in a SharePoint workflow environment, manual process, very complex to manage on a daily basis, and ultimately not sustainable. So then the bottom picture displays what the current state looked like after we went live. Very smooth process, accountability of all the business units providing the data, ensuring that the data is, the quality of the data is accurate, and validating how validation tools within the workflow to validate all those steps. Next slide, please. All right, so essentially the solution that we partnered with Vin MDM is we took this spreadsheet and we quickly developed a relationship with Vin MDM team, that it wasn't them coming to us and saying, this is what we have to offer, it's out of the box, it's this is what you get, and that's all you get. It was more of building a partnership and a relationship to understand our needs, not just our current needs, but the needs that we would need to build to really leverage into the future applications that we would be looking at. So we essentially sat down with this Excel spreadsheet that we were collecting data, and we essentially walked through it and said, this is what we need to build out within the Vin MDM tool. We were very successful in that. So they took an existing process that we were doing and essentially lifted and shifted that process from an Excel spreadsheet into the workflow tool. We went on the cloud-based platform. Why? Because it minimized capital expense during the deployment. We didn't have to worry about purchasing servers. We didn't have to worry about leveraging existing servers that we had within J&J. So we were leveraging more of the entire process out in the cloud. Easier to maintain, easier to make changes, don't have the immediate capital investment, and don't have the infrastructure that we'd have to worry about of setting it up within the J&J environment. Flexible data governance. So two of the things we also were looking for was data governance. We lacked a structured data governance platform, as well as developing a hub where we were collecting master data that we can leverage in future projects that are highly focused on accuracy master data. We were now building a historical hub that we can go into and pull out any information that we need from a master data perspective. The workflow managed model and support is exactly what we're looking for. It disciplines the business to provide the information. The other thing that we delivered as part of the solution that we lacked previously is we built electronic signature and the workflow tool. So when a business unit, critical business unit such as quality, was providing master data, the master data is only as good as somebody's providing, and we rely on the business to ensure that they're giving us the correct and accurate master data that we need. So now we were driving an additional accountability in the master data by, if you're going to sign the information and you're going to put your signature on the document, it means and confirms that you've done your due diligence to provide the data correctly and efficiently, as well as accurate, and that's the key, the accuracy and the quality of data. So every step within the workflow now had electronic signature of every business unit that required data. It was also structured, or is structured, so every business unit has to require information to move on to the next. As an example, supplier quality needs to provide a set of data attributes that may be important to finance. So finance needs to understand whether a component is coming in for inspection or not. So every business unit was built in sequence. It was built where you can't jump the sequence. So if you have a case where the workflow is hung up in procurement, we have metrics now that we've built around to really understand what is our SLA from start to finish. Where do we have bottlenecks? Who are those resources that are holding up the process in order for us to deliver the products or to deliver the master data within our supply chains in an expedient manner to be able to deliver to our end customers? This was something that didn't exist previously, so we were able to build metrics and now reporting on a regular daily basis on where the workflow is hung up or how fast we're executing to create those parts within our SAP platform. It's configurable, so role-based. We also have capabilities within the workflow. If Johnny is in procurement and Johnny's on vacation, we now can quickly go into the workflow and reassign it to a secondary and tertiary in the workflow, so we're not relying on one person. We have multiple people now within business units that can approve the workflow that's required. Some of the benefits that I talked about previously. So big thing for me was a reduction in a resource. So I was able to take that resource that was investing a lot of time in this manual process and reallocate his time and his efforts and other key master data areas of the business, such as really focusing on MPI. So I was able to quickly shift his allocation time to something else. Reducing cycle time. So previously, we were stuck with understanding from a manual perspective how long it was taking us to get through the entire process. Who was holding it up? We were having to pick up the phone and calling people to find out where we were in the process. Nope, that's behind us now. We have a tool that will provide all those details on where exactly it's held up, and I can now go directly to that business unit and keep the process moving. Again, we have historical data migration, so we've now built this hub where if I have a change order today, I can pull information from that hub. Let's say I'm revising a code and I previously set that up previously. So I can go now to my historical hub and I can run through the process much quicker because I'm pulling already 90% of the data that was essentially set up, and now I'm only changing those attributes that are changed based on the rev level. And so I've been able to speed up the process by tapping in to that historical data migration and helping that process through. consistent material information through all business units. One of the key things that we found was by allowing our affiliates around the world to have real-time data when we set up master data, because everybody's on different ERP systems, everybody's timing is different. The key here for us was to reach out to an affiliate such as somebody in Latin America, the supply chain team in Latin America that's running off of a different ERP system, communicating with them at the same time we're creating the master data in our systems. Essentially, we're the headquarters for that master data. We're now giving a notification to those affiliates around the world that have to require to set up the same information in their ERP system. We're now real time. The minute we kick off the process, we're asking them to kick off their process. It's no longer a month later, 2 months later. It's now you're kicking off your process at the same time we are. What we've seen in this is immediate response time, better response time to our customers around the world, because the information now is quicker and readily available. Next slide, please. Okay, and with that, again, our relationship with Vin MDM has been nothing but positive. Very easy company to work with. We've developed and finished, obviously now phase 1, it's been live. We're looking at expanding the capabilities with the workflow now to expand in the other key areas of the business. So we are already talking about potentially phase 2, and phase 3 with the Vinculum team. It has been a great success story for ASP. We've seen wins already within the platform. There's been nothing but a positive relationship between ASP and Vin MDM. So with that, I'll turn it back to the Vin MDM team.
Thank you, Gil. This is Aaron Zornes, your moderator. That was great. Looking forward to having you here for the Q&A, the questions and answers, at the last 10 or so minutes of the session today. Next up, we have one of the co-founders and the VP for Retail Solutions at Vinculum, Deepak Singla, who's going to give us an overview of the value add that they bring to this particular situation and these various use cases of master data management. Deepak, let's hand it over to you now.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. And thank you, Aaron, for a good insight on your market research across industries and the various MDM tools are there. Thank you, Gil, for being on the show today and sharing how MDG from Winculum helped Johnson&Johnson in achieving the global operational governance and that spans across the length and breadth of your organization. We also thank you for choosing Winculum and Vin MDM for Johnson&Johnson and for your feedback that Vin MDM helped in achieving the desired results for your organization. I'm Deepak Singla, one of the co-founders of Vinculum Group, a company incorporated in the US with operations across North America, major centers out of Florida and Arizona. Personally, I've spent more than 2 decades consulting with CPGs, supply chains, multi-channel retail companies, etc., before taking up the Vin MDM initiative at Winculum about 9 years ago. Through all these years, I've also had the opportunity to see an evolution of MDM before MDM became what it is today. Well, why do you need a master data governance at all? Historically, if you see, data ownerships used to have very little conflict, as most of the responsibilities used to be defined in the enterprise applications itself. At the most, you would create a data warehouse or a data mart, and call it a data hub. With time, as businesses grew and operations went global and all the business applications became more and more specialized into doing their own core functions. And as a result, the data governance took a backseat. Because, well, none of these business applications focused on governing the overall master data at the enterprise level. None of them managed the data quality or conflicts in a single or a central ownership. Then with the advent of SOA, the SOA architecture and the on-demand solutions, etc., each application started creating and maintaining their own subset of information, whether it's the customer, suppliers, or products. or else, well, that's the core master data asset for any business. Duplicates, non-standard, unprofiled, incomplete, inconsistent information used to sit in silos in most of the sophisticated, enterprise class systems. Well, you can imagine what happens then. It is after that the data governance as a concept took off and started catching attention, and the industry needed a operational governance at an enterprise level as well as at a project level. Now, in order to bring back the synergy, expertise, the visibility, the guidelines, rules, and most importantly, the ownership, both in the centralized and decentralized environments, we at Winculum picked up the lead and started working on few strategic data management projects with big enterprises. Slowly, all that experience that we learned from these projects got collated in bringing the Vin MDM to you. As you saw and heard, Johnson&Johnson also had all the typical issues of a big enterprise with global operations and multiple divisions and all that, and all the stringent processes and governance requirements. Some special ones like the digitally signed approvals that Gil talked about, and also those 3052 information security requirements. Well, I mean, not so many of them, but they were quite stringent. And we're glad that Vin MDM passed those tests and became one of the mainstream systems at J&J ASP, helping J&J orchestrate the process, manage the data quality, which is now consistent and available across the enterprise. Well, the key purpose for any MDM initiative like a J&J also is to create a central repository for most critical master data and augment the rest of the enterprise systems in the organization, functions like BI, analytics, CRMs, the catalogs, etc., making quality information consistent and available across the enterprise. And that's the first thing Vin MDM also does. It then cleanses the existing data, manages the process, instill the required workflow, business rules for the future entries, etc. So that it does not so that it does not go back to the starting point. I mean, if you don't manage or orchestrate the process of future data creation, it'll eventually go back to the starting point, and you'll have to clean it up endlessly. So, next slide, please. What makes Vin MDM a best-of-breed MDM system? Well, the standard MDM features with a multi-vector, multi-domain, multi-tenant environment, and well, it's on the cloud. It's a multi-domain MDM, gives you an integrated view across your products, suppliers, and customers, manages data quality, rules, governance, the RDMs, etc. The real unique prop are its industry-specific intelligence, the rules that it acquired from each of the implementation we did. Specific industries like the CPG or retail. I'm actually referring to the flexi data, which takes care of the design, etc. The multi-hierarchy manager and the catalog management features that we've got. So, how many times have you really struggled with hierarchy level or in a particularly in the middle or towards the bottom of the tree? When you did probably a merger or an acquisition or some other restructuring of your organization, or say a category or a catalog, well, does that sound familiar? Yeah. Well, what Vin MDM does is it maintains all these different hierarchies, your org, sales, catalogs, in-store, divisions, etc., separately in the data hub. And that lets you make as many changes as you like. Of course, the approved ones only go to the repository. Makes life easy. You can merge the orgs, the catalogs, all at the lowest level, and choose the hierarchy you want these to belong to. Same thing in principle for your multiple catalogs as well. Well, you keep them separate, exclusive for the product line to choose the parent. Like these, there are many industry-specific tools inbuilt into MDM. which come in handy during the most difficult mergers and decision-making exercises, which otherwise is painful to do through the conventional ERPs. Yeah. Next slide. So this gives you a quick glance of the special features that we've got in Vin MDM. The solution can be deployed on premise or on cloud, or with an option to buy a enterprise or a monthly subscription license. A typical implementation of MDM kicks off with creating an overall MDM strategy at a group level, covering all the divisions, geographies, or functions, people, process, systems, etc. that you may have. This produces this gives us an enterprise level data architecture, a process model, and all the business rules that need to be implemented. Then from this point on, Vin MDM takes over as a tool. The intelligent business rule engine, industry-specific, templatized approach makes our implementations easier and faster. With that, I would actually like to thank our customers among the audience today for all the experience and opportunity they have provided us in creating this disruptive tool. We've all learned these, the business rules from the industry are all kept in the central repository, and they come in handy for a faster implementation. So, and we hope to be of service to all the big enterprises among our audience today. Please feel free to contact us, for a Vin MDM demo or a proof of concept or a consulting, etc. on your MDM strategy, governance, or a PIM requirement. It's fast on the cloud, multi-vector, multi-domain, multi-tenant again. Well, thank you all for your time. I'll pass it back to Aaron to take this further, please.
Thank you, Deepak. That was a great overview, and it reinforced what we've been saying here, is that, the second and third tier MDM vendors got it right. They understand the requirement for workflow, for governance, for handling multiple domains out of the box, as opposed to being focused on a single domain. They're truly multi-domain, and so this is all the right level of functionality. The challenge for vendors such as Vinculum is getting their name out in the market, and of course they cannot typically be all things to all people, so you would expect them to specialize in certain industries, geographies, etc., because that's how they would grow the company. And that's what we're seeing, I believe, from Vinculum. So next up, the last 10 minutes or so, we have a number of questions that have come in, and we've been reviewing them. And we'd like to point out that if we don't get to your question, either myself or the Vinculum team will get back to you by email or phone call to make sure that your question was answered. You can still continue to enter the questions in the Q&A box. But meanwhile, let's start with some of the questions that did come in and are fairly good questions for us to get answered here. One question is for Gil at Advanced Sterilization Products, etc., is how is your MDM group structured? So that's a pretty basic question, but an important question for how do we get started? How was your group structured?
Yeah, my group's structured, so we have responsibility for all master data for ASP. So I have a data steward and a data analyst, and their responsibility is ensuring all the supply chain master data from start to finish is set up across all of our supply chain systems. So the team's structured on focusing on just product master and all the attributes that are required for product master.
Okay, and let me ask, so would you say these are people that had full-time job responsibility as opposed to a part of their, were there people that had the official title of steward or subject matter expert, et cetera?
Yes, so these folks are full-time, solely focusing on master data. So it's broken out in a specific product. So I have certain resources working on different product lines, but their titles are focused specifically on master data and setting up master data.
Right, and these are not carry-on job titles from pre-master data, before you did MDM, because I mean, if you look at some companies, they have product masters just as a title. These were new job descriptions, job titles that came into play as part of your MDM rollout, right?
They had previous titles, but they had additional job responsibilities after the MDM rollout.
Okay, great. Next question. Thank you, Gil, on that one. How much consulting is required to stand up the cloud MDM relative to the multi-year efforts with the other mega vendors? If that would be Deepak, how much effort or how much consulting, or Gil could answer that too, but how much consulting is required to stand up the Vinculum Cloud MDM?
Hey, you want me to take this up, Aaron?
Yeah, Deepak, that'd be good if you could handle that one.
All right. So, well, J&J SP happened flat 4 months, so that gives a sense. But then overall, a lot depends on the size of the org, the volume of data, the number of downstream systems, the cleansing requirements, etc. There are many variables, though. The fact that when MDM is on the cloud, it's multi-tenant and all that, and like I said, there's a templatized approach for the industry-specific implementations. So those come in handy for a faster, implementation. Worst comes, I wouldn't envisage more than a 6 months time frame for the most complex one. End of the day, it's obviously all these variables that play a role. The volume of data in particular. The cloud makes it easy to expand the infrastructure horizontally, etc. So that way, there's a lot of faster phases that we can achieve. Particularly we don't waste time in procuring the hardware, setting it up, commissioning it, and all that. So it's already up there. It's multi-tenant. There are rules there which is sitting there, which can be reused or modified, etc. Right? So that's it.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was having a smile there because when you said 4 months, 6 months, a lot of the organizations I work with, when they use a mega vendor product, it takes them 6 months, just to get their initial design and roadmap laid out, let alone before they start executing and see value. So time to value has been considered, very important in MDM projects. I guess the corollary that's advantageous to a product like yours is that you don't have the huge upfront expenditure of capital expenditures, because again, we're talking about operating expense as opposed to capital expense if you go the cloud route. So that helps too. Here's a question that looks like this might, it's for me as an analyst. How important is reference data as part of an overall MDM solution? How important is reference data as a part of overall MDM solutions? Well, for a lot of us, reference data, those relatively static code lists, pricing lists, industry codes, and so on, a lot of that reference data is yet another domain. It's just like product, just like customer, it's yet another domain. If you like the third leg, the third main domain of party, thing, and reference data. And so it would be great if you could do reference data as part of your MDM hub, so you don't have to buy yet another product and go through all the pain associated with yet another piece of software. The training, the expense, the setup and maintenance, and so on. So that's one of the good news, again, like second and third tier providers, such as Vinculum, who have, and it was good to see here on the charts, that they include reference data in there when they describe their product. The reference data is just one of their domains that they support out of the box. Now, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it. So when you look at reference data, it's not just saying that they do reference data, but that they have the hierarchy management, that they have the semantic mappings between tables of codes so that the translations do take place and the relationships are maintained and are understandable, by the people who onboard these reference table, these reference tables, etc. So that's important. But you could buy it separately. And again, that's part of the duology that's going on, is that a good number of organizations that I work with rebel against the concept of using IBM, Oracle, SAP, and Informatica because of pricing and complexity for their reference data, and instead will buy a piece of software, a different software product. Okay, and so that's my view as an industry analyst. Next up, the next question would be SAP. How does VinCloud integrate with, or does it need to, the SAP footprint at Johnson&Johnson? Yeah, J&J, you guys have a lot of SAP, and you mentioned it as part of your exploratory, your overview of what's going on at Advanced Sterilization Products. So Gil, how does the VinCloud MDM integrate, or does it integrate, or will it integrate with your SAP footprint?
Yeah, so initial phase, what we called phase one, just due to timing, there was no discussion about, so essentially we chose not to integrate. However, we did look at capabilities to integrate, and it's certainly capable to integrating into Vin MDM. Future state, what we're looking at is potentially phase 2 and 3, is to do some integration between Vin MDM and SAP. But initial phase 1 for ASP, we looked at integration and decided to table the integration just from a timing and cost perspective. So it does have capabilities to integrate with SAP, but ASP at this point in time chose not to. But certainly it's on the table in discussions to integrate in future deployments. Okay,
makes sense. One more question as we go into the final several minutes here for Q&A. And just as a preface to the question, when I, as an industry analyst or anybody evaluating MDM platforms, look at what's out there, some platforms are decidedly batch because that's the nature of their environment for product onboarding or product PLI or PLM, et cetera, different types of applications for creating and rolling out new products. Others are very near real time when we're talking about e-commerce transactions or cross-border or boarding a plane or a train type applications that have to be near real time for identity resolution. So the question for the Vinculum people about their product VinCloud MDM is, are you more appropriate for real-time e-commerce style, or are you more of a batch style workflow-centric MDM used for data quality? And if you do real-time, it says here, what are some of the scaling? What is your maximum headroom? 30, 50 users against 5 or 10 million rows. What is the sweet spot? What is the range of suitability in terms of scalability and performance for your particular product? Because not everybody can be all things to all people. So clearly, you must have some sweet spot that you're best suited for.
Sure. So there are multiple parts of the question. I'll take it up one by one. So first is, are we batch or real time, right? So,
right.
See, essentially, we use both the methods, and a lot depends on, the type of transaction. So, if it is seller registration, supplier registration, customer registration kind of transactions where you need to have a real-time feedback on whether your registration is approved, etc., or not. So, those are the things where real-time is necessary, and we use that. But then there are other type of transactions where they're more internal to the organization, and you could do a batch mode in terms of, sometimes the approvals, you don't need to do it on a real time. So obviously it saves the bandwidth and stuff, and number of concurrent users, that way, that also plays a role. So it's all configurable. We can choose the method, and whether we want to do that real time or batch mode. So they're both options available. Sorry, what was the second part of the question, Aaron?
The question is scalability in terms of number of concurrent users or number of unique rows supported, et cetera.
All right, yeah. So we've had implementations where, there have been around 60, there were like 60,000 suppliers and 60, or on the seller panel in one of the marketplaces where we implemented. So not all of them would be concurrent at the same time, but you can take a guess in the sense, at any point in time there'll be 20-25% of those users who are on the system. Products-wise, we've handled more than 1 million rows and stuff like that. Not all the rows or not all the products go under modification, etc. at all the time, but in a retail kind of environment where it's very dynamic. I mean, you add about 500 products, etc., like in a day. So those are the kind of volumes and transactions we've handled. There have been some optimizations, etc., that we've done over a period of time, and it's a continuous exercise as well. Since it's a multi-tenant and multi-domain environment, this is more, on the basis of, the method that we choose and for the integration, etc. And the technology that we use is more, web services, JSON objects, and all those things, which make it easy for a real-time as well as a batch mode configuration. So if that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that does a great job of giving us the big picture. We started a few minutes late, and so we have a few minutes clockwise to run out our 1 hour webcast. I know a lot of people need to take off and go back to their normal day job, as we say, or get out of lunch mode. This is available for replay, this webcast, to share it with your coworkers and so on. I know that, Deepak, you had some other words you wanted to add here at the very end, I think, as we wrap up.
Well, there's a email ID on the screen right now, Aaron Jones webinar at vinculumgroup.com. Please use that to send more questions or any further insights into Vin MDM or anything that you may want to ask. We're sure to give you a good deal, some free services, etc. Around your MDM initiatives. If you come through this website, this email ID. Feel free, just contact us anytime. We'll be sure to get back to you quickly. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
And thank you, Gil, for taking time out of your busy workday for giving your experience, sharing your experience. And thank you, Vinculum, for hosting this and making this available, that we can help move the ball forward for a lot of organizations who are looking at MDM for supply chain and CPG, retail, and other such industries. Again, my name is Aaron Zornes, your moderator for today, and I'd like to thank Vinculum for inviting me to be the moderator. I really enjoyed it. And Gil, I look forward to seeing you perhaps as a speaker at our San Francisco conference next July. It'll be a good thing as well. So again, thanks everybody. We look forward to your ongoing questions. If you have more, you have the email address there in front of you. Thank you and have a great day.